What's up, guys? This is Magnus Manga, and I'm coming to you with Is it Shonen or Shojo? So essentially, this will be talking about all of the different manga demographics, like Shojo, Johsei, Shonen, and Seinen, and then kind of doing is it this one demographic or is it this other demographic, and kind of talking about it, because I feel like this is a topic that a lot of people get wrong, and so I kind of want to talk about it. So yeah, let's get right into the video. So the first series that I'm going to talk about is a great example of kind of what I want to talk about, and that is Vinland Saga by Makoto Yukimura, which was a manga that was originally published in April of 2005 in Kodansha's Weekly Shonen magazine, and then it got moved in October of 2005 to Monthly Afternoon. I don't know the exact reason of what caused the move, but it probably has to do with the type of story that he was trying to tell. You see, Shonen, Seinen, and Shojo, and Johsei, they are not a genre. What I mean by that is that, yes, Shonen has its own tropes, and yes, that Shojo or Seinen or whatever have their own separate tropes. But the thing is that those tropes are generally tended towards their specific demographic. For example, Shonen is more for younger middle school to high school boys, and then Seinen tends to be for older high school to middle 20s men, and so the types of stories that are told for those demographics change a lot. Like, for example, in a shonen, you're probably going to get a lot more action. You're probably going to get some fan service because guys are kind of horny and whatever. And then there's seinen, which tends to be more philosophical at times, especially in its action series, or it's a lot more thoughtful in the way that it tells different stories, and I will get into that a bit later in the video. And so Vinland Saga is a perfect example of that. We have a protagonist who has a specific goal, revenge for his father. He fights in a lot of battles, and he has a lot of, while he doesn't have any superpowers or etc., he's definitely a very powerful fighter and is very well respected as a fighter. And so Makoto Yukimura, he wanted, with his story of Vinland Saga, to write a protagonist that kind of challenges the shonen norms. And that is definitely the protagonist that Thorfinn is. And so I don't know the specific reason why it changed magazines, but I'm guessing that probably had an influence on why it left Weekly Shonen magazine. The next two that I want to talk about have a lot to do with manga that seem to be a shoujo manga, but are actually a shonen. And so first off is Horimiya. That is a series that definitely seems like it would be a shoujo, especially if you don't know a lot about the different demographics, because it's a rom-com. It's all lovey-dovey, and what teenage guy is gonna want to read that? Well, apparently shonen rom-coms are very popular, and yeah, it's not a shoujo. And the main reason why is because it was published in Square Enix's monthly G Fantasy magazine, and and simply because of the magazine that it was published in, it is not a shoujo. And while I haven't read that many shoujo, I've really only read Marmalade Boy so far. And I do plan on reading Sailor Moon, because that's just a classic. I have watched Cowboy Bebop, which is also a shoujo. It's simply not a shoujo because it wasn't published in a shoujo magazine. And then Noragami is another one that I've heard people call a shonenjo, which is where it looks like the art looks like it would be a shoujo, like a shoujo manga, but it was not. It's just not a shoujo. And again, the reason why is because it was published in Kodansha's monthly shonen magazine. And yeah, the art style's insane for a shonen manga, and it definitely does not look like the average shonen manga. But it was published in monthly shonen magazine, and so it's a shonen manga. This one definitely I have a lot less of the more philosophical, or not philosophical, the more thoughtful and like creative reasoning of why it's not a shoujo, based on tropes and stuff. But it's not because it was published in this specific magazine, and it was, it's just not, a shoujo, despite what the appearances may be. Sup guys, I want to take 1 second of your time to talk about one little thing. With the recent rise in manga prices, it can be a little expensive to continue collecting on manga. So that's why I highly recommend you guys use Takara Cafe for any and all manga purchases. On the website, all manga is 20% off, and then there are tons of different ways to kind of bring down that manga price. And if you use coupon code Magnus22, you can get another 10% off your purchase. So I highly recommend you check out Takara Cafe today. Another interesting manga that I kind of want to talk about is the Pokemon Adventures manga, because it has a lot of the same shonen tropes that we see like in, the average shonen manga. But what's interesting is that it's not shonen, it's not seinen, it's not shoujo, and it is not a Johsei. It is a Kodomo Muke manga, which is essentially manga for children in elementary school and upwards. It's essentially the G-rated manga, even though Pokemon Adventures isn't really G-rated, I would say, at least the first few series for sure. And it was published in Koro Koro magazine, which is the magazine that really really helps make Pokemon famous. And even one of the creators of Pokemon has even said that the Pokemon Adventures manga is how he views the Pokemon world, which I find very interesting. But I just wanted to point this out, that even though it has a lot of the shonen tropes, it is none of the four main demographics, and it is a Kodomo Muke. Some other examples of this are like the Kirby manga or the Mario manga that you might see around. I thought that would be a really fun and interesting example of something that seems like it would be in one specific genre, quote unquote, manga genre or whatever, but it's actually in none of them and is in its own separate thing. Last up is the manga that really made me want to make this video, and that is Skippin' Loafer. It is a manga that seems kind of like Horimiya, where it should be a shoujo because it's a rom-com. It's really wholesome, It has some like really nice art. How could it be a seinen? I mean, freaking Vinland Saga is a seinen. We have Vagabond, we have Berserk, but no, that's a seinen. Skippin' Loafer is a seinen because it was published in Monthly Afternoon. Same with, Kaguya-sama, Love is War, which is actually in, Viz's Shonen Jump line, or Oshinoko, which also was published in Monthly Afternoon. Those are series that, seem like they're, shonen or whatever, or shoujo for Skippin' Loafer, but they're actually seinen for the sole reason that they're in a seinen magazine. And I think there's a lot of people who kind of just, they look at a series, they think, oh, because it has this art, it has this like cutesy art style, it has this wholesome story, it's a rom-com, it must be a shoujo. But unfortunately, it's really not. And I think there's definitely like this, like kind of, there's just like this, like, oh, it's kind of brush off of a story that, like, because it's a rom-com, it's not meant for guys. And I think that's kind of just not true. Like, Skippin' Loafer is probably in my top 10 right now. It's really good, and I love Horimiya too. Probably should not have watched the Horimiya anime just before Valentine's Day, but it is what it is. And while there are some manga that definitely seem like a fitting seinen rom-com, like Kowloon Generic Romance, Skippin' Loafer is just as much of a seinen as Kowloon or Vagabond or Vinland Saga, or even Parasite or whatever. It's just it's interesting how we like to just oversimplify things to the point where we actually miss something that's a lot easier to like I feel like viewing it as a demographic makes the different categories of shonen, shoujo, josei, and seinen a lot more simpler than defining it as a genre, because the genres get mixed and muddled so much. Because Skip and Loafer seems like it's not a shonen, it doesn't have a lot of the same, and seinen, it doesn't have a lot of the seinen quote-unquote tropes. But yeah, it is. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I really wanted to talk about this at some point, and I thought this would be a pretty good time to do so. I know that it's a very weird and confusing topic to talk about, because a lot of people have, kind of some strong feelings about it, but I wanted to kind of share my thoughts and how I view it, and I feel like that the way I present shonen, shoujo, seinen, and josei, and kodama muke, that that would be the most accurate version of these specific categories of manga and anime. I do want to address that the kind of lack of actual shoujo and josei manga. The fact is that I only have one shoujo manga and two josei manga, and they kind of don't really have a ton of branching out into other genres. The shoujo I have is Marmalade Boy, and the josei that I have is Wotakoi Love is Hard for Otaku, and Josie the Tiger and the Fish. And I didn't really feel like they had a lot to really contribute to what I had already said in the video. I really love Wotakoi, don't get me wrong, and I've been enjoying Marmalade Boy. It's just that for the topic of the video, I felt like the series that I specifically mentioned fit more with the topic that I wanted to discuss. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of a shorter one-ish, but I feel like it is something that to talk about and discuss in the anime community. So guys, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you come back for more manga videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.